The surveillance footage is timestamped February 1st, 2013. A young woman enters the elevator at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She looks anxious, presses several buttons, waits, then peeks out quickly, steps back in, hides in the corner, steps out again, gestures toward the hallway as if speaking to someone the camera never captures. Then, she vanishes. If you find this case as unsettling as we do, make sure you're following this story. We're going deep, respectfully, thoroughly, and factually. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. The woman in the footage was 21-year-old Elisa Lam, a Canadian student visiting Los Angeles alone. She had checked into the Cecil Hotel just 4 days earlier, excited to explore the city. She posted photos of the lobby, updates on her Tumblr, and messages to her family back home. She was supposed to check out on February 1st and continue her journey to Santa Cruz. But she never made it. Her family grew worried when they didn't hear from her. Elisa called home every day until she didn't. LAPD was notified. A missing persons report was filed. The search began, and then LAPD released the elevator footage. It went viral instantly. Millions watched, searching for answers. Was she hiding? Was someone chasing her? Why didn't the elevator doors close? Theories exploded. Stalker? Possession? Hallucination? Something paranormal? Or something far darker? But behind the grainy footage was a very real person. Elisa Lam wasn't just a viral mystery. She was a daughter, a sister, a student. Her disappearance shattered her family. And the location she vanished from, the Cecil Hotel, was no ordinary place. Its walls had witnessed decades of death, crime, and unspeakable secrets. As days passed, hotel staff and guests grew increasingly unsettled. Strange smells, discolored tap water, low pressure. It wasn't until February 19th, 18 days after she was last seen, that her body was found in one of the rooftop water tanks. Naked, lifeless, floating. No one could explain how she got there. The tank was locked, elevated, and required tools to access. The hotel never reported a break-in. Elisa wasn't supposed to be on the roof. And yet, there she was. The autopsy ruled it an accidental drowning. But the details left room for doubt and outrage. How did she get into the tank alone? Where were her clothes? Why hadn't dogs found her scent during the initial search? This wasn't just about one strange video anymore. This was about a young woman who vanished inside a hotel known for its darkness, and was found in a place no one could explain. But what really happened to Elisa Lam? What was your first reaction when you saw the elevator footage of Elisa Lam? Did it look like fear, confusion, or something else? Let us know in the comments. Before the grainy elevator footage and the rooftop water tank, there was just a young woman chasing a dream. Elisa Lam was born on April 30th, 1991, in British Columbia, Canada, to parents who had emigrated from Hong Kong. She was the first in her family to be born in North America. Growing up, Elisa was quiet but bright. A reader, a writer, someone who looked inward and expressed herself best through words. She attended the University of British Columbia, though she wasn't officially enrolled at the time of her trip in early 2013. What few people knew then, and what would later become a major part of the investigation, was that Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. She documented her struggles candidly on her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, where she wrote about loneliness, anxiety, heartbreak, and the weight of expectations. Her posts revealed a sharp mind, a sensitive soul, and a young woman trying desperately to feel understood in a world that often felt too loud. In January 2013, Elisa decided to take a solo trip down the West Coast, a sort of personal reset. Her plan was to visit San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, and San Francisco using Amtrak and public transport. It wasn't unusual for students her age. A solo trip to clear her head, explore, and perhaps find some inspiration. She arrived in Los Angeles on January 26th, booking a stay at the Cecil Hotel, located on Main Street in downtown LA. The location was central. The price was cheap, But Elisa couldn't have known its history, or maybe she didn't care. The Cecil had long been infamous for suicides, overdoses, and violent crimes. It was even home, briefly, to serial killers like Richard Ramirez. But on the outside, it still looked like just another budget hotel. Elisa was originally placed in a shared room with strangers. But after a couple of days, the other occupants complained about Elisa's erratic behavior, and she was moved to a private room. The hotel staff noted nothing alarming, just that she seemed odd and sometimes unsettled. She continued to post on Tumblr. She visited the zoo in San Diego. She took photos around the city. One post from the trip read simply, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." There were no signs she was in danger, no warning that anything was wrong. But something at some point shifted. January 31st, 2013 was the last confirmed sighting of Elisa Lam alive. She visited the last bookstore downtown and bought some records and books. The shopkeeper remembered her as cheerful and talkative. That night, she was seen entering the elevator. And then, nothing. No checkout. No phone calls. No replies to her family. Her online presence went dark. By February 1st, Elisa Lam was missing. Have you ever followed someone's blog or social media and felt like you knew them, only to realize how little we really see? What do you think Elisa was searching for on her solo trip? When Elisa Lam didn't call home on February 1st, her parents in Vancouver grew concerned. A day passed, then another. By February 3rd, concern turned to panic. Elisa wasn't the type to go off the grid, not without warning, and never without calling home. Her daily check-ins were a promise, especially during a solo trip in a foreign country. Her parents contacted the Los Angeles Police Department. Officers visited the Cecil Hotel to speak with staff, who said Elisa had been staying alone since moving out of her shared room. Her belongings, including her phone, wallet, and laptop, were still in her room. The bed was made. Her toiletries were in the bathroom, but Elisa was gone. The LAPD launched a missing persons investigation. Flyers were printed with Elisa's photo and description. 21 years old, 5 feet 4 inches, 115 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, Canadian citizen. Volunteers, many of them students from nearby campuses, helped post the flyers all around downtown Los Angeles. Detectives began retracing Elisa's steps. They interviewed the bookstore owner she visited on January 31st. They questioned Cecil Hotel employees and combed through guest logs. A search of the building was conducted, including the lobby, hallways, and Elisa's room. But the rooftop, that was locked. Officers didn't access the water tanks. Not yet. At this stage, there was no clear evidence of foul play. No break-in, no blood, no signs of a struggle. But something felt off. Officers brought in tracking dogs. The K-9 units searched every floor of the Cecil. According to police reports, the dogs did pick up Elisa's scent, but it abruptly stopped on the 5th floor, near a window that overlooked the hotel's fire escape. Did she climb out that window? Could she have wandered onto the roof herself? The building was old. The fire escape offered access to upper levels, but the rooftop doors were locked and alarmed. If someone opened them, staff would have been notified, or so the hotel claimed. Meanwhile, public attention was growing. Online sleuths and local media began covering the case. A young woman had vanished from a hotel with a violent history, and no one had seen a thing. Police hoped that surveillance footage might offer answers. They reviewed recordings from the lobby, elevators, and hallways. That's when they found it, the elevator video. It was recorded at 8:29 p.m. on February 1st. Elisa's final known movements. The footage was both mundane and deeply unsettling. When released to the public on February 13th, it ignited a firestorm. Why was she pressing so many buttons? Why did she keep peeking out, as if hiding from someone? Who was she talking to? To many, it looked like fear. To others, confusion. To some, it looked like something else entirely. But what was real? And what was projection? When you first saw the elevator footage, what stood out most to you? Her behavior or the fact that no one else ever appeared on camera? Drop your thoughts in the comments. When the LAPD released the surveillance video of Elisa Lam inside the elevator at the Cecil Hotel, no one could have predicted how quickly it would spread. Within hours, it had gone viral. Uploaded to YouTube and shared across forums like Reddit and web sleuths, the 2-minute clip became an internet obsession. In the video, Elisa appears disoriented and paranoid. She enters the elevator and presses multiple buttons in quick succession. But the doors don't close. She backs into a corner, then suddenly peeks out as if checking for someone. She flattens herself against the wall. Her hands move in odd gestures, almost like she's talking to someone or to herself. Then she steps out, glances around, and disappears from view. The doors close, then open, then close again. There was no audio, just the eerie silence of a malfunctioning elevator and a young woman behaving in a way that no one could explain. Was she on drugs? Was someone following her? Was she playing a game? Or was something darker happening that night? Some online viewers believed Elisa was experiencing a mental health crisis, possibly a manic or psychotic episode tied to her bipolar disorder. Others fixated on the elevator itself, speculating that it was malfunctioning due to some paranormal force or hidden figure off camera. Conspiracy theories bloomed. Some said Elisa was mimicking behavior from a Japanese horror movie. Others claimed she had been targeted by human traffickers or had become involved in a cult. A few suggested she had been murdered by someone staying in the hotel, a guest who knew the building's secrets. But beneath the noise and speculation, the reality remained. Elisa Lam was still missing. As days passed, frustration grew. Her family flew from Vancouver to Los Angeles and pleaded with the public for help. The LAPD remained tight-lipped. No suspects, no clues, no updates. Then guests at the Cecil Hotel began complaining. They said the water pressure was low. Some said the water in their rooms had a strange taste. A few even claimed it came out dark and murky before clearing. On February 19, 2013, 18 days after Elisa disappeared, a maintenance worker climbed up to the roof to check the hotel's water tanks. He lifted the hatch and found her. Elisa Lam's nude body was floating face up, her clothing nearby. She was dead. The rooftop doors were still locked. The water tanks were tall, heavy, and difficult to access without a ladder or significant strength. No one could explain how she got inside or why. When you learned her body was found in the water tank, what was your first reaction? Shock? Anger? Confusion? Let us know in the comments below. If you're drawn to true crime stories that raise more questions than answers, this is a case you won't want to miss. Like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next detail of Elisa Lam's chilling story. When maintenance worker Santiago Lopez climbed to the roof of the Cecil Hotel, he thought he was investigating a routine complaint. Guests had reported odd water pressure, strange smells, and dark-tinted water. Lopez made his way past the locked rooftop door, scaled a platform, and approached the large cylindrical tanks that supplied water to the hotel. One of the lids was slightly ajar. Inside he saw her, Elisa Lam, floating face up, naked, motionless. Her clothes were at the bottom of the tank, along with her room key and wristwatch. The discovery sent a wave of horror through Los Angeles. For over 2 weeks, guests had unknowingly used water that had been contaminated by a decomposing body, brushed their teeth with it, drank it, showered in it. Police quickly cordoned off the area. The tank was drained, and firefighters cut into the side to remove Elisa's body. The public demanded answers. How did she end up there? Could she have climbed in herself? If so, why? And if not, who put her there? Investigators turned back to the timeline. Elisa was last seen on February 1st. The elevator footage was timestamped 8:29 p.m. That same night, according to police reports, she was locked out of her shared room by her hostelmates due to odd behavior. Hotel staff then moved her to a private room on the 5th floor. But after that, nothing. No confirmed sightings. No noise complaints. No security alerts. And somehow she wound up on the roof, a place that was allegedly secured and alarmed, and inside a water tank that was difficult to access, even for staff. On February 21st, the LA County Coroner's Office began its autopsy. The report, released 4 months later, concluded that the cause of death was accidental drowning. No evidence of physical trauma, sexual assault, or foul play. There were no drugs in her system other than her prescribed medications, and some of those were found in subtherapeutic levels, suggesting she may have skipped doses. To the police, this supported the theory that Elisa had suffered a bipolar episode and entered the tank on her own. But the public wasn't convinced. Critics pointed out the flaws. How did she access the roof without triggering alarms? Why was the tank lid open when she was found, but supposedly closed when police searched earlier? And perhaps most unsettling, how did she close the lid behind her? The hotel's silence only fueled the outrage. Guests filed lawsuits. Her family sued the Cecil for negligence. But in a city known for strange deaths and twisted myths, this case stood out. Felt unfinished. Online sleuths refused to let it go. They downloaded the elevator footage frame by frame. They interviewed guests. They crawled through maintenance diagrams of the Cecil's roof. They weren't just chasing answers, they were trying to give meaning to something that didn't make sense. Do you believe Elisa climbed into the tank on her own? Or do you think someone helped her up there? Comment with your theory. Elisa Lam's autopsy labeled her death as accidental. The LAPD closed the case. But the internet wasn't done. In fact, the real investigation was only beginning. Across YouTube, Reddit, web sleuths, and countless blogs, amateur detectives were obsessed. They dissected every frame of the elevator footage. They mapped out the Cecil Hotel's layout. Some even traveled to downtown Los Angeles to explore the building in person. Theories ranged from logical to bizarre, but they all had one thing in common: doubt. Doubt in the official story. Doubt in the idea that a 21-year-old woman could accidentally access a locked rooftop, lift a heavy water tank lid, climb inside, and drown, all without anyone noticing. Some believed Elisa was playing a viral urban legend called the elevator game, which supposedly opens a portal to another dimension. In this version, her erratic button-pushing and body language meant she had slipped into a parallel world and couldn't return. Others focused on the hotel's history of crime and violence. The Cecil had hosted serial killers, suicides, and decades of tragedy. Could Elisa have encountered someone dangerous in the hallway? A guest? A staff member? Someone who knew how to disable the alarms and use the staff elevator to reach the roof? More grounded voices pointed to Elisa's bipolar disorder. Her Tumblr posts, recovered by internet users, revealed someone who was open about her struggles. Was it possible she had a manic episode, became disoriented, and climbed into the tank herself? The autopsy raised more questions. There was no water in her lungs, something normally present in drowning cases. There were no scratches, bruises, or broken fingernails suggesting a struggle. And yet, the lid of the tank was found closed. No ladder, no footprints, no obvious way she could have sealed herself inside. The Cecil Hotel wasn't helping matters. Their story kept changing. At one point, they claimed the rooftop door was locked and alarmed. But guests soon uploaded videos showing that it was, in fact, easy to access. Some even demonstrated how to bypass the alarm using a side staircase. Even stranger, the hotel reportedly told police they never searched the tanks during the early days of Elisa's disappearance. Yet that was where she had been the entire time. People began posting side-by-side comparisons of the elevator footage with scenes from horror films. They noticed glitches in the video's timestamp. Some frames seemed missing or slowed down. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some even tied her death to a nearby tuberculosis outbreak, citing a real diagnostic test named LAM Elisa. Coincidence? Or something darker? What started as a missing person case had now become something else entirely. A haunting puzzle that refused to be solved. Do you think the authorities missed something critical in Elisa's case? Or were they hiding it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Before Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel, she had already left pieces of herself all over the internet. Her Tumblr blog, titled Nouvelle Nouveau, was a window into her mind, raw, artistic, introspective. Scrolling through the posts, readers found everything from book quotes and travel dreams to reflections on anxiety, loneliness, and depression. She was open about her struggle with bipolar disorder. She wrote about feeling misunderstood, invisible at times, but also hopeful. In one entry, she quoted Chuck Palahniuk, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." Elisa wasn't hiding. She was reaching out. As her story gained traction online, people began pouring through her blog like a crime scene, searching for clues, wondering if she'd left behind a digital breadcrumb trail, something that might explain what happened in Los Angeles. The post showed a young woman who was trying to find herself. She spoke about how hard it was to leave her comfort zone, to travel alone. Her family had been worried, especially given her mental health history. But Elisa wanted to push herself. She wanted to be brave. Her trip to California was supposed to be part of that growth. She traveled by Amtrak and made stops in San Diego and Santa Cruz before reaching Los Angeles. She shared bits of it online. Photos, thoughts. In one post shortly before her death, she wrote, "I have arrived in LA, and I have no idea what's going on." Then silence. No more posts. No more photos. Just that one chilling sentence, her final message to the world. Investigators also combed through her Facebook and Instagram. Nothing suggested she was in distress. No signs of suicidal intent. No mentions of fear or danger. But they did find that she had stopped taking her medications regularly, something the coroner's toxicology report would later confirm. Her prescriptions, Wellbutrin, lamotrigine, Seroquel, Effexor, were found in low or inconsistent doses. This led doctors to conclude she may have experienced a psychotic episode, possibly involving hallucinations or confusion. It offered a potential explanation, but not a satisfying one. Because even if she was disoriented, how did she gain access to the roof? How did she manage to climb into the tank, which stood over 10 feet tall, without a ladder? How did she lift the lid? And if she was truly in crisis, why did she seem so calm in the elevator just moments before? The internet had theories, but no answers. And the Cecil Hotel remained quiet. No follow-up statements. No new footage released. Just silence, the kind that makes people dig deeper. And as the mystery thickened, Elisa's story became something else. Not just a case, but a reflection. A mirror of how we deal with the unknown. How we search for patterns in tragedy. And how we often try to explain the unexplainable. What do Elisa's blog posts reveal to you? Do they show signs of someone in danger, or simply a young woman trying to make sense of life? Comment your thoughts. When the world learned Elisa Lam died at the Cecil Hotel, some weren't shocked at all. Because this building had a reputation. One built over nearly a century of death, violence, and mystery. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1924, in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. Back then, it was a symbol of luxury, marble lobby, stained glass, polished brass. But as the Great Depression hit and Skid Row expanded, its glow faded. What replaced it was darkness. The hotel gained a nickname, the Suicide Hotel. From the 1930s to the 1960s, it was the site of numerous suicides. People leaping from upper floors, overdosing in their rooms, vanishing without a trace. And then came the killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, reportedly stayed on the 14th floor in 1985 while terrorizing Los Angeles. According to staff, he'd return from his crimes, blood-stained, and walk through the lobby barefoot, unnoticed. Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist turned serial killer, checked in during the 1990s. While researching crime in LA, he murdered at least 3 women. He chose the Cecil as his base. By the time Elisa Lam arrived in 2013, the hotel had tried to rebrand itself. It now operated partially as Stay on Main, a boutique-style hostel with a separate lobby. But the building was the same elevators, same rooftop, same shadows. Her parents later filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hotel, alleging negligence. They argued that the roof access should have been locked, the water tanks properly sealed, and guest safety a priority. But the hotel denied liability. They claimed Elisa had caused her own death, and no staff could have predicted or prevented it. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed, but online, the hotel's name became inseparable from the tragedy. YouTubers explored its hallways. Ghost hunters set up cameras. Netflix released a documentary. The Cecil became a character in Elisa's story, one as haunting as the mystery itself. And despite the theories and explanations, people kept coming back to the same question. How did a young woman, staying alone in a hotel with such a past, end up in a water tank on the roof? In 2017, the hotel shut down for renovations. By 2021, it reopened as affordable housing. But for many, the energy never changed. Locals still glance up at the roof. Tourists still whisper her name in the lobby. Elisa Lam is part of the building now, part of its legend. Do you believe the history of the Cecil Hotel played a role in what happened to Elisa? Or was it just coincidence? Tell us in the comments. If you're drawn to real-life mysteries that still haunt the present, don't forget to like this video, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next twist in this chilling case. As the public tried to make sense of Elisa Lam's tragic death, experts across various fields stepped in, each bringing a different lens, each offering more questions than answers. The official ruling by the Los Angeles County coroner was accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder listed as a significant contributing factor. But for many, that raised more concerns than it answered. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. John Liebert, who reviewed the case, acknowledged that Elisa's inconsistent use of her medications, particularly her antipsychotic, Seroquel, could have led to disorganized thinking, hallucinations, or delusions. This, he suggested, might explain her behavior in the elevator footage. But even then, something didn't sit right. Criminologists noted that psychotic episodes often include disoriented behavior, yet Elisa's actions appeared oddly purposeful. In the elevator, she pressed multiple buttons in a deliberate sequence. She moved in and out of the doorway. She gestured at what or whom no one could say. She didn't seem out of control. She seemed alert. Former homicide detective Tim Marcia, who had worked cases in downtown LA, questioned the logistics. The Cecil's roof wasn't just a stroll away. Getting to the water tanks required bypassing locked doors, climbing a narrow ladder, and lifting a heavy tank lid. Doing that alone while supposedly disoriented or psychotic. That's where many professionals paused. Others pointed to her autopsy report. The decomposition of Elisa's body complicated the findings, but there were key takeaways. No illegal drugs were found in her system. No signs of physical trauma, such as bruises or restraint marks. Her clothes were found floating separately in the tank. There was no evidence of sexual assault. So if no foul play was detected, why do so many people still doubt the official story? Some say it's the mystery of the footage, how her behavior doesn't match textbook psychosis. Others cite the bizarre timing. Elisa died in a hotel with a legacy of violence, in a city known for secrets. Then there are the conspiracy theorists who dove deeper than any professional. Some linked her death to a tuberculosis outbreak among the homeless population in LA around that time. A strain called LAM Elisa, eerily similar to her name. Others tied it to secret experiments, occult rituals, or even the supernatural. Investigators, for their part, dismissed all of it. But the public? They weren't done asking. Do you think Elisa Lam's death was simply a tragic accident? Or is there something more that was never revealed? Let us know your theory below. For Elisa Lam's family, the nightmare didn't end with the coroner's report. In fact, it had only begun. The moment her death became public, and especially once the elevator footage was released, the case took on a disturbing new life. What was once a private tragedy for a grieving family turned into a global obsession. Online forums lit up with speculation. YouTube channels analyzed every movement of her hands in the elevator. Reddit threads picked apart her Tumblr posts for signs. Strangers who had never met Elisa were suddenly treating her like a puzzle to solve, rather than a person who had lost her life. Her family, especially her parents David and Yina Lam, were devastated. They had immigrated from Hong Kong to give their daughters a better future in Canada. Elisa was their firstborn, her dreams, her drive. All of it had been rooted in a quiet promise to make their sacrifice worth it. They had called her every day while she traveled. When she stopped answering in late January 2013, panic set in. When they flew to Los Angeles to search for her, they never expected the ending would come with camera crews, press conferences, and strangers debating her mental health. And yet, that's what happened. What the Lams wanted was clarity, justice even, but the hotel wouldn't give it to them. And the legal system didn't either. Their wrongful death lawsuit was dismissed, and no criminal charges were ever filed. Meanwhile, the public fascination with Elisa's story reached disturbing levels. Tourists began booking rooms at the Cecil Hotel just to stay in the same building where she died. Some even asked to be placed near the water tanks. Others snuck onto the roof, hoping for some supernatural experience, or worse, a viral moment. When Netflix released Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel in 2021, it reignited the interest all over again. The documentary interviewed hotel staff, web sleuths, and investigators. But critics argued it left too much unsaid, and that it only deepened the mystery. For Elisa's family, the show reopened old wounds. They had never wanted her legacy to become entertainment. And perhaps that's the cruelest part of this tragedy. Elisa Lam was a real person, a student, a daughter, a young woman who fought through the darkness of bipolar disorder, who loved books, writing, and helping others. She wasn't just a case file or a viral video. She was 21, and while her story has circled the globe, the answers haven't. The questions remain. The elevator doors never closed, and the silence at the top of the hotel still lingers. Do you think the internet's obsession with unsolved cases helps or hurts the families left behind? How do we honor the victims without turning them into stories? Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 28, 2013. What began as a solo adventure had now become a case that gripped the world. And yet, the hours leading up to her death remained frustratingly fragmented. Chapel Hill detectives and online sleuths alike attempted to map out her last known movements. And what they found painted a strange, scattered picture. At first, Elisa was placed in a shared room with others on the 5th floor, a setup often used by budget travelers. But that arrangement didn't last long. After just 2 nights, her roommates reportedly complained about her odd behavior. The hotel moved her to a private room. What exactly had she done to alarm them? That part was never officially released. Still, she continued exploring the city. On January 31st, Elisa visited the Last Bookstore, a well-known independent shop in downtown LA. The store clerk later recalled her being cheerful and talkative, even buying a few items as souvenirs for her family. Later that day, she made a call home to Canada, her last known contact with her parents. According to them, she sounded fine. There were no signs of distress. And then, silence. By February 1st, Elisa missed her scheduled checkout. She didn't respond to calls. She wasn't in her room. Hotel staff reported her missing. LAPD was called. Flyers went up around the city. Surveillance footage from local businesses was reviewed. But it wasn't until they looked at the hotel's own footage that everything shifted. That infamous elevator video, timestamped February 1st, early morning, was the last confirmed sighting of Elisa Lam alive. The video was disturbing in ways no one could fully explain. She presses multiple elevator buttons, but the door won't close. She peeks out as if someone is watching her. She hides. She gestures strangely with her hands. Some said it looked like she was talking to someone. Others thought she was hallucinating. But no one else appeared in the footage. The door eventually closed, and opened again, closed, and opened again. But Elisa was gone. In the following days, hotel guests began to complain about low water pressure. Some even said the tap water was discolored. Maintenance staff went to the rooftop to check the tanks. And that's where the nightmare deepened. Do you believe Elisa Lam was acting out of fear or confusion? And if someone else was involved, why weren't they ever caught on camera? February 19, 2013. Maintenance worker Santiago Lopez was sent to the roof of the Cecil Hotel to investigate complaints from guests. Some had reported strange-tasting water, dark coloration, and low pressure. It was routine to check the rooftop tanks, but what he found was anything but. Lopez climbed a metal staircase to the platform where 4 cylindrical tanks stood. Each was about 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide. secured behind a locked door leading to the roof, but the individual tank lids could be opened manually. When he opened one of the tanks, his eyes met something horrifying. A naked female body floated face up just below the surface. Her skin was pale and bloated. Clothes were later found at the bottom, the same clothes worn in the elevator footage. It was Elisa Lam. The police were called immediately. Her body was removed hours later by the fire department, after cutting open the tank and draining it. The autopsy would take months to finalize, but the questions were instant. How had she gotten to the roof? The Cecil's rooftop was off-limits, protected by an alarm system and locked doors. If the alarm was triggered, staff would be notified, yet no such alerts were reported. There was also a fire escape, but to reach it, one would have to climb through a window and up multiple flights in plain view. Then came the tank itself. It was tall, smooth-sided, with no fixed ladder. Investigators questioned how Elisa, a 5 feet 4 inches woman, could have climbed up, opened the heavy lid, and gotten in on her own. It didn't seem impossible, but it wasn't easy either. More troubling, how did she end up inside naked? And why were her clothes at the bottom? There were no visible bruises, cuts, or signs of trauma. No drugs or alcohol in her system, apart from her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder. The autopsy listed the cause of death as accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder cited as a contributing factor. But to many, this explanation didn't make sense. There were no cameras on the rooftop, no witnesses, no alarms, no clear answers. Her parents refused to believe it was an accident. And in online communities, theories spread like wildfire. Was someone following her? Was she lured to the roof? Or was something more sinister hiding behind the walls of the Cecil Hotel? As for Santiago Lopez, the man who found her, he would later testify that the lid was closed when he arrived. If that's true, someone would have had to close it after Elisa went in. But she couldn't have done that herself. Do you believe Elisa Lam climbed into that tank alone? Or is the closed lid the key to something far more chilling? Let us know what you think. If you want more emotional, suspenseful true crime stories like this one, don't forget to like this video, share, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a case that still haunts the world. When the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office released Elisa Lam's autopsy report in June 2013, over 4 months after her body was discovered, it should have provided closure. Instead, it raised even more questions. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning, with Elisa's bipolar disorder noted as a significant condition. But the final report also included contradictions and omissions that baffled experts and enraged the public. There were no signs of physical trauma, no bruises, no defensive wounds, no signs of sexual assault, no alcohol, illegal substances, or toxins in her system. Only her prescribed medications were present, such as Wellbutrin, Lamictal, and Seroquel, all commonly used to treat bipolar disorder. But toxicologists noticed something odd. The levels of these medications suggested Elisa may not have been taking them regularly. That detail became central to the theory that she may have suffered a manic or psychotic episode. Disoriented and paranoid, she might have climbed to the roof herself and entered the tank without realizing the danger. But her family didn't accept that theory. Elisa's parents, David and Yina Lam, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel in September 2013. Their case argued that the hotel failed to ensure guest safety by allowing Elisa access to a hazardous area. How had Elisa reached the roof, they asked, without triggering the hotel's security system? Why were there no security guards monitoring access points? And if she was indeed having a mental health crisis, why wasn't more done to help her? The lawsuit also questioned staff behavior. According to court filings, hotel workers knew Elisa had been behaving erratically days before her disappearance. Yet they did not alert mental health professionals or intervene beyond moving her to a private room. Defense attorneys for the hotel pointed out the complexities. The hotel's alarmed rooftop doors showed no signs of tampering. Staff claimed the fire escape was accessible, but difficult. And even then, how Elisa managed to enter the tank, let alone close the lid, remained unclear. Investigators interviewed every staff member, searched Elisa's laptop, her blog posts, and her travel itinerary. They found writings that reflected mood swings, typical of someone navigating bipolar disorder, but nothing that directly indicated suicidal intent. And then there was the autopsy change. Initially marked undetermined, the cause of death was later revised to accidental. No clear explanation for this revision was ever released. Even medical examiners seemed to tread carefully. The report noted, due to the circumstances, the known history of bipolar disorder, and the absence of physical trauma, the manner of death is classified as an accident. But to many, that read more like an assumption than a conclusion. What do you believe? Was the ruling of accidental drowning a fair conclusion? Or does the evidence point to something that's still being hidden? As the official narrative settled into accidental drowning, the internet erupted with doubts. Online sleuths, bloggers, YouTubers, and Reddit users dissected every frame of Elisa Lam's final days. The now infamous elevator footage was watched millions of times. Viewers slowed it down, zoomed in, speculated on every flick of her hand, every step forward, every glance behind her. To many, it didn't look like someone suffering a medical episode. It looked like someone being followed, someone hiding, someone terrified. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some suggested Elisa was playing a supernatural elevator game. An urban legend said to open portals to another world. Others believed she was drugged or manipulated by someone inside the hotel. A few tied her death to the dark past of the Cecil Hotel itself, once home to serial killers like Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger, and the site of countless suicides and tragedies. But beyond the speculation, real people were grieving. David and Elisa Lam rarely spoke publicly. When they did, it was quiet, careful. They described Elisa as a beautiful girl, full of life, who struggled with mental health but was managing it. Her trip to California was meant to be a break, a solo journey of discovery, adventure, and growth. The family's lawsuit against the hotel gained traction online. Supporters argued that if a hotel allows guests to access a rooftop with an open water tank, they should be held accountable. The Cecil's legal team countered. Elisa had to go through a locked door, climb a platform, scale a tank, and lift a heavy lid. They insisted it wasn't foreseeable. It wasn't the hotel's fault. The case dragged on. Meanwhile, journalists dug into the Cecil Hotel's history. Built in 1924, the once grand building had long since lost its shine. By the 2010s, the Cecil had become infamous, not just for its rundown conditions, but for the strange and deadly events inside its walls. The documentary Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, released by Netflix in 2021, reignited public interest. It told Elisa's story to a global audience, but it also reignited controversy. The documentary was criticized for giving too much attention to internet sleuths while failing to confront deeper institutional failures: the mental health system, hotel safety, police procedures. Some viewers felt it explained too little. Others felt it explained too much. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing: Elisa Lam deserved better. Her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, remained online for years. In it, she wrote raw, vulnerable reflections about her struggles, her hopes, and her view of the world. One entry simply read, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." That sentence became a painful echo for those who followed her case. Do you think the internet helped uncover truths about Elisa's case? Or did it blur the line between investigation and exploitation? By the time Elisa Lam's story made global headlines, the Cecil Hotel was no longer just a faded building in downtown Los Angeles. It had become the epicenter of public outrage, fascination, and fear. Reporters camped outside its doors. Camera crews filmed guests checking in, oblivious to the history looming in the halls. And inside, hotel staff were scrambling. Managers issued tight-lipped statements, emphasizing the building's security systems and denying any negligence. But the truth was harder to sanitize. Guests had showered and brushed their teeth with the very water Elisa's body had contaminated. Many expressed disgust, not just at the contamination, but at how long it had taken anyone to investigate the rooftop tanks. Critics questioned the hotel's access points. How had Elisa reached the roof? Why weren't the doors alarmed or locked with better security. Some hotel staff claimed the door to the roof did trigger an alarm. Others weren't so sure. The conflicting statements only fueled suspicions. Meanwhile, LAPD faced its own criticism. From the release of the elevator footage to the time it took to find her body, many questioned whether they had mishandled key parts of the investigation. Some pointed to the lack of initial search of the water tanks. Others asked why more extensive searches of the hotel weren't conducted sooner, especially after Elisa had been missing for nearly 3 weeks. Internally, sources said detectives were growing increasingly frustrated. They believed Elisa's death had been accidental, but the public wasn't satisfied. To many, something felt off and unanswered. Activists and mental health advocates stepped forward. They asked why Elisa, a young woman diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, was traveling alone without adequate support. Where was the safety net? Who had failed her? Online, her story sparked broader conversations. Was this about one girl, or a system that lets people fall through the cracks? Elisa's face became a symbol, not just of a tragic death, but of vulnerability, of youth, of the struggle to stay afloat in a world that doesn't always make space for those who are quietly fighting battles inside their minds. Her words lived on through her Tumblr. Each post felt more intimate now, as if the world was finally reading what it should have noticed before. One entry read, "I'm going out tonight, so wish me luck." She never posted again. Do you think more proactive mental health systems could have changed the outcome of Elisa Lam's story? Or was the system never designed to help someone like her? On February 21st, 2013, just over a week after Elisa Lam's body was discovered, the Los Angeles County coroner officially ruled her death an accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder listed as a significant contributing factor. There were no signs of trauma, no evidence of sexual assault. The toxicology report revealed traces of prescription medication, consistent with her bipolar treatment, but also suggested Elisa may have skipped some doses. No illegal substances were found. The LAPD closed the case. And just like that, the questions stopped, at least officially. But for the public, and for Elisa's family, the answers didn't feel like enough. Online communities pushed back hard. How could a petite 21-year-old woman access the hotel roof, lift a heavy water tank lid, climb inside, and all without anyone noticing? The path to the roof was supposed to be locked. The tanks weren't easy to reach. And the lid, according to initial police statements, was found closed, though later they revised this, saying it had likely been left open after her discovery. Details like that, shifting, inconsistent, only deepened the skepticism. In September 2013, the Lam family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, arguing negligence in providing safe accommodations. The hotel's legal team responded by blaming Elisa herself, citing her mental health condition and personal decisions. In 2015, the case was quietly dismissed. No settlement, no public apology, just closure, on paper at least, but the world hadn't forgotten. Over time, Elisa Lam became more than a name. She became a symbol for internet activism, mental health awareness, and institutional failure. Her story inspired documentaries, podcasts, art installations, and advocacy projects. But through all the noise, the pain remained real, for the people who knew her, and for those who simply saw themselves in her. Her final Tumblr posts remain haunting. "I'm not sure I'm ready to be a part of the world. I wish I could just go back to the days where everything was easy. I don't know what I'm doing anymore." Words from a young woman trying to make sense of life, and now remembered across the world as both a voice and a warning. Does the official ruling of accidental death bring you any sense of closure, or does it leave you questioning what we'll never truly know? If you want more real stories like this, ones that ask tough questions and honor real lives, don't just scroll past. Like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Even after the case was closed, Elisa Lam's story refused to fade. In fact, it only grew louder, echoing across forums, podcasts, documentaries, and countless YouTube videos. What happened at the Cecil Hotel in early 2013 struck a global nerve, not just because of the mystery, but because it felt deeply human. Elisa was relatable. She blogged about depression, social pressure, identity struggles, and the fear of not being enough, things millions of people quietly carry. Her posts weren't cries for attention. They were fragments of a young woman trying to understand herself in a loud, unforgiving world. And so people connected. Thousands began reading her old Tumblr posts, not to investigate but to know her. Her voice, thoughtful, awkward, brilliant, made her feel like someone you might have met in college, or someone you used to be, or someone you lost. Then came the media frenzy. In 2017, Netflix announced a documentary series titled Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. Released in 2021, it reignited public interest in Elisa's death, but not without criticism. Some felt the documentary focused too much on conspiracy theories and not enough on Elisa herself. Her family, still grieving, did not participate. Still, the docuseries shed light on the Cecil's dark history and the way the internet can warp grief into spectacle. It reminded audiences that behind every headline is a real person. A daughter, a sister, a life. The Cecil Hotel, long known for its grim reputation, tried to rebrand. It was renamed Stay on Main, then shuttered for renovations, and reopened in 2021 as supportive housing for low-income residents. Yet, even with new paint and new purpose, the building remained haunted, not by ghosts, but by stories. And Elisa's story was the loudest of all. Mental health advocates began citing her case as a painful example of what happens when invisible battles go unrecognized. Why was she traveling alone? Was she getting the care she needed? Could more have been done? These weren't just rhetorical questions, they were calls to action. Over time, her story became a rallying cry. We must do better. Better for those with bipolar disorder. Better for those struggling in silence. Better for young women navigating unfamiliar cities, unfamiliar systems, and unfamiliar minds. Do you think Elisa's story has helped spark real change? Or are we still turning tragedies into content without addressing the root issues? Long before true crime became a booming industry, Elisa Lam's case was already being dissected by the internet. In early 2013, just weeks after her body was discovered, online forums lit up with questions, theories, and deep dives. Reddit threads exploded. YouTube channels emerged. Everyone had an idea, and many believed they were closer to the truth than the police ever were. It started with the elevator footage. Slowed down, looped, color-corrected, and annotated, it became the internet's obsession. Some said Elisa was hiding from someone. Others believed she was playing a paranormal game. There were whispers about the Korean elevator game, demonic rituals, and shadowy figures edited out of the frame. The video, lacking sound and context, became a mirror for speculation. People pointed to a timestamp glitch, her hand gestures, the door staying open too long. Each frame was analyzed like sacred text. One YouTube video titled Elisa Lam, What They're Not Telling Us, garnered millions of views, turning curiosity into conspiracy. But with that curiosity came consequences. In 2013, a death metal musician named Morbid, who had once stayed at the Cecil, became the target of online accusations. Sleuths unearthed his dark-themed music videos and assumed guilt. They flooded his pages with threats, demanding justice for Elisa. The problem? He wasn't even in the country when Elisa disappeared. He had nothing to do with the case, but the damage was done. His career collapsed. He attempted suicide. Years later, he was still haunted by the false allegations. This was the dark side of digital justice, where suspicion becomes evidence and emotional reactions override facts. Yet, not all online attention was harmful. Some sleuths uncovered real flaws in the investigation: conflicting timelines, poorly secured access points, and discrepancies in hotel statements. Their persistence kept the case alive, forcing media outlets to dig deeper. In many ways, they became watchdogs for truth, even if their methods were messy. Still, the question lingered: when does helping become hurting? The internet had turned Elisa's final moments into content. Her face, her words, her death, all became tools for engagement, theories, and profit. Some meant well. Others wanted clicks. And in the chaos, the real Elisa, the daughter, the writer, the student, was sometimes lost. Her story became a case study in the power and peril of internet sleuthing. A reminder that behind every mystery is a person, not a puzzle. Do you think internet sleuths helped bring clarity to Elisa Lam's case? Or did they blur the line between truth-seeking and exploitation? The Cecil Hotel was already infamous long before Elisa Lam walked through its doors. Nestled in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, near the edge of Skid Row, the building had earned a reputation as a magnet for tragedy. Murders, suicides, and unsolved disappearances had stained its history for decades, but none had captivated the world quite like Elisa's. Her death added another chapter, but this time the story went viral. The hotel's past resurfaced with fresh interest. Internet users unearthed chilling facts. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived on the 14th floor in the 1980s while committing his crimes. In 1991, another serial killer, Jack Unterweger, stayed there while murdering women in LA. Countless guests had reportedly died by suicide within its walls. To many, Elisa became part of this haunting legacy, the latest victim of a place some claimed was cursed. The hotel tried to shed that image. It rebranded as the Stay on Main, targeting younger travelers with budget prices and hip marketing. But no matter what name it took on, the past stuck. Tourists visited not for the amenities, but for the mystery. Ghost hunters filmed overnight specials. YouTubers vlogged from the lobby. True crime fans asked to stay on the same floor as Elisa. Some called it morbid curiosity. Others called it disrespect. But one thing was clear. Elisa's death turned the Cecil into something more than just a building. It became a symbol of everything society fears. Isolation, untreated mental illness, urban decay, unanswered questions. Years later, when Netflix released Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, critics and fans alike revisited the case. The series attempted to humanize Elisa while also exploring the hotel's unsettling history. But it reignited debate. Was this helpful awareness or just another repackaging of trauma for entertainment? The city of Los Angeles eventually stepped in. In 2021, the Cecil reopened, not as a tourist spot, but as permanent supportive housing for low-income residents, part of a program aimed at helping those experiencing homelessness. A new purpose, far removed from its haunted reputation. And yet, the whispers continue. To this day, Elisa's case is cited in conversations about online ethics, mental health, and the limits of digital detective work. Her face, captured forever in those final elevator moments, has become etched into the collective memory of true crime followers around the world. She is not forgotten, but she is still not understood. Do you believe places like the Cecil Hotel hold a kind of energy, or do we create the horror through the stories we tell about them? The official cause of Elisa Lam's death, according to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, was accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder listed as a significant contributing factor. There were no signs of trauma, no sexual assault, and her toxicology report revealed only traces of her prescription medication and a small amount of alcohol. But for many, the report didn't silence the questions. It only stirred more. How did Elisa get onto the roof of the Cecil Hotel without setting off alarms? How did she lift a heavy metal tank lid and enter it alone? Why did the hotel staff not notice the water pressure issues sooner? And why had hotel management taken so long to act, even after guests complained about foul-tasting water? Some pointed to her mental health struggles as the simplest answer. Elisa had documented her challenges openly in her Tumblr posts. She had moments of darkness, yes, but also clarity, humor, and deep introspection. To reduce her story to just a diagnosis felt cruel and incomplete. Her family wasn't satisfied either. In 2015, they filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hotel, claiming negligence in its failure to secure access to hazardous areas. The court later dismissed the case, ruling the death unforeseeable. But to this day, her parents have remained largely silent. Their grief never faded. It only became quieter. And then, there was the elevator footage. It never went away. It remained the centerpiece of every theory, every article, every whisper. Was she being followed? Was she hallucinating? Was something or someone just out of frame? The door's delay, the odd movements, the invisible conversation. It was a haunting puzzle that never found a final piece. Even now, more than a decade later, many believe we still don't have the full story. But maybe that's the point. Not all stories have clean endings. Some stay open, echoing across time not because of what we learn, but because of what we feel. Fear, empathy, curiosity, sadness, all wrapped up in a case that defies resolution. Elisa's death didn't just expose the dark corners of a hotel. It exposed the fault lines in how we treat mental health, how we consume tragedy, and how quickly we turn people into mysteries instead of memories. Do you think Elisa Lam's case was truly an accident? Or does something still not add up to you? If this case has held your attention, take a second to support this channel. Like the video, share your thoughts below, subscribe for more true crime stories, and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Elisa Lam was more than a name in a headline, more than the girl in the elevator, more than a case that went viral. She was a 21-year-old Canadian student from Vancouver, the daughter of immigrants who had worked tirelessly to give her and her sister a better life. Her parents, David and Yina, ran a small restaurant in Burnaby, British Columbia. Like many first-generation families, they carried the weight of sacrifice and hope. Elisa carried that weight too, but also dreams. She was bright, bookish, witty. Her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, was filled with quotes from her favorite writers, snapshots of her mood swings, and reflections on life that cut straight to the heart. It was raw, vulnerable, honest. I wish I could feel as intensely about anything as I did when I was 15, she once wrote. Another post read, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." Behind those words wasn't a mystery. It was a young woman grappling with existence like so many of us do. When she set off for her California trip in early 2013, she hoped it would be an adventure, a break, a way to reconnect with herself. She visited the San Diego Zoo. She posted photos. She messaged her parents daily. Her last post, made on January 31st, the night she vanished, simply read, "I have arrived in LA and it is really pretty. What happened after that became the story the world knows. But what came before, her laughter, her fears, her curiosity, too often gets buried beneath theories and retellings." In the years since her death, some of Elisa's friends have spoken out, asking that people remember who she was, not just how she died. A former classmate described her as kind and quick to smile. A counselor once called her deeply introspective. She had plans to graduate, to work in publishing, to help others understand the importance of mental health. She never got to fulfill those plans. And yet, in a way, her story sparked conversations that had long been ignored. About mental illness, about internet sleuthing, about how we treat real people like characters in a horror movie. Those conversations are her legacy, if we choose to listen. She was not a ghost. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a young woman trying to navigate the world with all its beauty and pain. If you could speak to Elisa today, what would you say? What would you want her to know about how her story has impacted people around the world? The rooftop water tank of the Cecil Hotel is now sealed. Guests come and go, some unaware of the dark story that once unfolded above their heads. Others come because of it, because of the legend, the questions, the haunting elevator footage that still circulates online like a ghost refusing to rest. But for those who knew Elisa Lam, and those who came to know her through her words, her story isn't about a viral video or conspiracy theories. It's about a young woman who felt everything deeply, and who, for reasons we may never fully understand, died alone and unseen. In the years since 2013, the Cecil Hotel has closed and reopened under a different name. But the shadow of Elisa's case lingers, not as a curse, but as a reminder of how mental illness is often misunderstood, of how institutions sometimes fail those who need help the most, and of how the internet can blur the line between truth and spectacle. Elisa's family, quietly grieving in Vancouver, has never sought the spotlight. They never gave long interviews or pursued public campaigns. Their silence spoke volumes, of pain, of privacy, of love held close. Their daughter became a symbol, but to them, she was just Elisa, their child. And maybe that's how we should remember her too. Not as a question mark, not as a mystery, but as a young woman with a beautiful mind, a brave heart, and a story that touched millions, even in its tragic ending. In the end, no theory, no documentary, and no viral clip can give us what's truly missing: peace. Not just for Elisa, but for all who saw a piece of themselves in her story, in her anxiety, in her search for purpose, in her hope, because maybe deep down that's why her story stayed with us. Not because of how she died, but because of how human she was. In memory of Elisa Lam, April 30th, 1991, February 2013. May her story continue to inspire empathy, awareness, and the courage to speak about the silent battles so many face. Do you believe justice was ever truly served in Elisa Lam's case? Or do you think something was left unresolved? If this story moved you, take a moment to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell. It helps keep important stories like Elisa's alive, not for curiosity, but for compassion.